Good morning. This is Angela with a cup of tea on Monday, September 19th, 2011. So one morning, I was in the car with my daughter, taking her up to the high school, and she said, "Mom, what are we?" And I said, "What do you mean, what are we?" And she said, "Well, are we Christian? Are we Buddhist? What are we?" And I said, "Well, I would guess, if you had to put a term to it, I would say we're more universal." And she really liked that, and I explained where that came from, and she really liked that thought, and so it was easy for her to grasp. But it was on the eve of after I had just finished reading a book called The Third Coming, and the author is Jim Rosemergy, I believe. And it's not a Christian book. It's actually a book about the entire consciousness, humanity consciousness, and where we're going. And it's an awesome book, easy read. If you get the chance, it's definitely worth picking up. It's only maybe 175 pages, maybe, yeah, and you can read it in like a day. But it gives some great ideas, and it puts a lot of things together that make a lot of sense. And in that book, the purpose for me bringing that up is that there was this part where they were talking about a reporter who had gone to interview Gandhi and walked into where Gandhi was living and noticed there was a big picture of Jesus on the wall. And the reporter said, "I don't understand. I thought you were Hindu." And Gandhi said, "I'm Hindu, I'm Christian, I'm Buddhist, I'm Jewish, I'm Muslim." And it goes on, but the whole idea was the oneness idea of we're all of that. We are all of that. And the sooner we can come to that acceptance and that oneness and coming from pure love and acceptance, and then that's when we can get to that next level. That's when we're all getting to that next level. Now, the funny thing is, and what's really cool, is how we have this very individual, beautiful spiritual path to enlightenment, every single one of us, from the sum of our experience. And in this part of the existence for thousands and thousands of years, how we have such an individual way of clearing it all out and of remembering that we're one, and from our lessons and experiences, how we've grown and how we've become different and just more expanded. And now we're coming back to this oneness from that perspective, and then we can take it to the next level. You know, we've sort of been in this school for thousands and thousands of years. We're done with it. We're ready to get to college, right? Or graduate school, whatever you want to call it. And what's really important is, more and more I talk to people who are very devout in their belief, and that's great. And they'll say to me, "Well, I believe that the only way to God, Spirit, Creator, encompassing life force of the universe, however you want to put it, I believe that the only way to that is through what I believe." And I say, "Okay." And they sort of like always look surprised when I say that, because they're expecting me to start a debate, to argue with them, to tell them that they're wrong. And what I've been made to understand, and all the messages I've received since I've gone through what I call my Grand Awakening in 2009, is we're all right. Whatever it takes to get there is our business. It's our journey. And whatever it takes for us to come from a pure existence of love and acceptance, that's what works for us, for every one of us. So what that means is what works for you, is going to work for you, and what works for me works for me. Now, what's an awesome thing is when you can come to the table with a completely accepting, loving stance, and have, come to the table with somebody else who has very different, beliefs. Because what's beautiful about that is then you can listen to each other without judgment and without ego. And then you can also learn from each other every single time. I love having these conversations. I love talking to people who have very different approach to how they're getting there. Because every single time we always learn something from each other if we come at it with a completely accepting, loving way. So that's like the first step in this whole paradigm shift that we're doing. And it's truly a paradigm shift, and we're throwing out these boxes. Now, you might think of those boxes as simply being belief systems or religions, but it's not. It goes down to so many different levels. And this is what I'm finding is the challenge for many people who are awakening. Because what's happening is when we awaken, there are these truths that we just can feel in the core of our soul that are truths. absolute truths. And many times when that first happens, it's a jolt because it will conflict with many things we've been taught in our culture, in our belief system, religions, institution, government, society, family, peers, you name it. And that comes down to everything. That comes down to what a relationship is supposed to be, what a marriage is supposed to be, what a family is supposed to be, what a culture is supposed to be, what a belief system, all that stuff is what we've been taught. And then when we get these truths, it's like, whoa, wait a second. Whoa. And so actually the easy part of that is when you look at a belief system or religion, and then you're awakening going, okay, well, wait a second, there's some conflicts here. And the training here and the exercise is to remember to come back to your heart and to your higher self. And then when that opens up, when that pipeline opens up, sometimes it does because we have been working at it. Sometimes it happens when you just follow, the pipeline just totally unclogs, which is sort of what happened with me. And you say, well, wait a second, how can I feel this is right? And yet look at all the stuff that I've been taught was not right. And wow, and it really takes you back into yourself to reassess where you are and to adjust those understandings. And if you feel like it's coming truly from the heart or from your higher self, then it's right. That's what we are coming back to in this experience of trusting our heart and our higher self, our soul, over the ego and over what we've disempowered ourselves to believe. We've disempowered ourselves to let others tell us is what right for us. So there's some friction there, and that's a big learning block for all of us. But what's really key is to remember that we're working towards this level of understanding, acceptance, and love. Because my understanding is the only absolute in this universe is love. And if we come at everything from that, well, then everything else that's not love, that's not based in love, needs to, will fall by the wayside at some point. So that includes things like there's any limitations. So like I said, if we're limiting ourselves, when we are limiting ourselves in our relationships and our marriages and our commitments and all that kind of stuff, because anything that limits us, meaning I can only love one person, I can only be this, I only can do this because of this, even though it's not making me happy, then it's not a truth. If there's something that is a compromise or a release and it doesn't make you happy, truly happy, and I'm talking about from the heart and the higher self, that's something to reassess. So I've been talking and working with a lot of people who are really coming across these, and it's awesome that all this is coming up. But it's something to remember also as we move into this new way of thinking, and we're moving into the spiritual evolution, and we're really in the crux of it now, is that as we release all these boxes, it's time to truly release all these boxes. So we are still allowed to be, we still want to be an individual, and yes, we still can be an individual. That's all part of this journey. That's all part of breaking off as a spark of the divine and going through these lessons. But at the same time, the key in my understanding is that we are understanding that we are all one and accepting that we are all one. So that includes many people in the new spirituality realm or the new thought realm, where they say, well, okay, well, there are these people and those people. Great example of that is when we try to group. And by grouping, you're saying that some people are and some people aren't, but we all are. So a big example of this, and I've heard this from several people, and it felt really, really true to me, is when people say things like indigo children and rainbow children and indigo adults and everything, we're all there. We all have the same capability. And that's what I spend a lot of my time having to remind people, because they'll say, oh, well, I don't have that ability. So-and-so has that ability. Okay, the key I always say is that person has already uncovered that ability, but you have not. And it doesn't make you right or them right and you wrong, or vice versa. It just means that they just find one ability easier to uncover than another, and you are different because of your journey. So that's where the ego gets in play, and that's what we've been taught, because how many times have we been told growing up, oh, well, that's for those kind of people and you can't do that. or only this kind of person can do that, and you just don't have that gift. You don't have that ability, because we all have it. We all can do all of it. We can all tap into the divine, and it all comes from the divine. So that's your thought for this week. It's a pretty huge one, and there are many topics, little subtopics that go along with that, but this is coming up more and more, and I understand it was an important topic to cover, because it's something to just keep it at the forefront of your thinking when you start saying, well, there are those people, or there are those people, but we're all doing this together. We're all in this together. It's just we have an individual and we have a collective, and that's what's really, really beautiful about the whole thing. So on that, I'm going to let you go. Have a great week. I'll talk to you on Thursday. This is Angela with a Cup of Tea.